to For the Record with Unit 26 Studios, episode 1. My name is Ben. I'm with Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Pemberton.
This is our first podcast episode. I need to stop moving in my seat, don't I?
No, you got to sit really still.
Yeah. So how are you anyway?
Yeah, good.
Well, we thought it'd be a good idea to do a podcast about the studio, about studio life, recording, live streaming, all the studio stuff that comes with it, I suppose.
Yeah.
You've just moved into the studio, haven't you?
Just moved in here, got my room all set up. Everything's working really well. Great place.
So where were you before?
I was over in a place called MCC Studios over in Mottram.
Right, okay, cool.
That's closed now and become a private studio. So here I am.
Cool. We've got a few ideas for the studio, haven't we, coming up? So we thought the podcast is one of them, which we're going to start. We're going to start doing a weekly episode. And for the podcast, we've got a couple of ideas as well. So one of the ideas would involve someone sending us a mix, and then we can have a listen to the mix, play a bit of the mix on the podcast, and we can talk about it. Actually, before we do all this, should we go through who's and why we're doing it and who you are and stuff?
Yeah, I could do, yeah. Yeah, I've been around for a few years and working in studios all over the place. I lived in London most of my life, I'm from here originally, but moved back up to Manchester about 3 years ago. Before that, I was working at a studio called The Strong Room down in London for about 20 years. I was chief engineer there, worked with all sorts of people from, E17 and the Spice Girls to the Prodigy and Motorhead.
It's more than that, though. Every band I seem to mention at the minute, Dave has a story about working with them, and it's
everyone in between.
It's quite amazing, yeah.
If they were around in the 90s, I pretty much probably worked with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stories, which I'm sure we'll get to quite a few on the podcast throughout the time doing it.
So I mix and produce and engineer and been working in studios my whole life. So pretty much what I do.
So you're a teacher now as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I do a bit of teaching at SSR. Just started this year teaching BA in electronic music production.
How'd you find that?
It's all right. It's all right. Pays the money during COVID.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
pays the bills.
So did you start that just as COVID come in?
Yeah, just a mate of mine works there, and somebody left, and there was a vacancy. So he said, "Do you want to come in and have a chat with them? Do a couple of days a week, maybe."
Right. Okay.
So it started off just teaching one module in February. Then very quickly turned into teaching the second years as well. Then COVID hit and it all went online on Zoom.
So has that been better for you? Or
it's easy enough. I can sit in the studio, do the lessons.
Yeah, so you have all the Zoom stories, horror stories that everyone's got going on at the minute since COVID started.
Not so bad. I've been all right with it, really.
Yeah, well, as an engineer, you kind of have more of an insight as to how it works, I suppose. I think so many people were complaining about Zoom at the beginning of this, weren't they? Because everyone was just trying to use it for the first time for like meetings for work and everything.
Yeah.
Everyone was just complaining about it.
I've been doing it since year dot, though. I've been doing FaceTime video and whatever else was before that.
Right.
MSN Messenger with video. And
MSN Messenger, that takes me back.
I was like doing online collaborations in the early 2000s, a thing called Rocket Networks on Logic. And it enabled you to share your sessions. You could share screens. You could have a webcam link up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's old technology to me, this.
Right, fair enough. Well, it's probably good, really. Like, it's nice to have the knowledge there before you need it, really, isn't it? So
yeah. So it's easy teaching Ableton and Logic and stuff like that. It's really easy on Zoom because you can share the screen. The students can share their screens with me. I can take over their screen and show them how to do stuff. Yeah. It's so easy. It's kind of easier on Zoom than it is in the classroom.
Yeah, well, I suppose you get more. It feels more one-to-one as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Stuff like that because you're hands-on exactly on what they're doing.
Yeah.
No, cool.
So it's good. But I still enjoy doing the music. It's just a little sideline, really. Making music's where I'm at.
You get a good discount on plugins and stuff as well.
Yeah, I get a student discount now, first time in about 30 years.
It's quite a big discount as well.
It's all right.
It's like not small.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Apple are a bit stingy.
Are they? Well, you get the headphones, don't you? That's all they give you, the headphones.
You don't get much off Apple.
No. Well, that sums Apple up, really, doesn't it? For some reason, we all use it, but they're the least giving company going.
Yeah. So here I am at Unit 26. It's a great place, this.
Yeah, so we're in Media City in
Love
Manchester.
This new live room.
Well, yeah, that was kind of, as you kind of delve into the teaching part through COVID, we delved into renovations. So we literally stripped out probably the whole studio, actually. And then we've combined loads of rooms into one big live room, which makes, because obviously the spacing issues now, isn't there? So we wanted a room where you could still have band in, still be 2 meters apart. So
yeah, right.
But I'm glad we did it now. I feel it's a lot nicer of a live room now than it used to be.
Yeah. and it's good. His ceiling's nice and high. It's a good drum sound in here. I can't wait to get a band in.
No, it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to this year now it's all finished. And it's been weird as well, because obviously we're sat now in the part that was the live room.
Yeah.
And when I look at it now, it seems so small, but it didn't when we were using it. That's the weird thing.
Square box.
Yeah.
Low ceiling and everything.
Yeah,
really,
low ceiling, just one like rectangle square room. So I look at it now and I think, how did I even use that as a live room? We had like 6-piece bands rehearsing in it.
Yeah, right.
You just think,
Squeeze.
So yeah, obviously my introductions are kind of going to be a lot shorter than Dave's. I've had Unit 26 Studios for probably about 12 years now. We were here before Media City was here, really. So we kind of got it and then built it into, it was actually a rehearsal room when we started. Yeah. And the plan was, I was in a band, my dad was in a band, so we wanted somewhere we could just store all our crap and rehearse a couple of times a week with our bands. And then someone went, well, why don't you make it into a studio? And then started the most expensive venture of my life.
The endless, bottomless money pit of a studio.
Pretty much, yeah. So it's been a studio now for probably about 10 years.
My old manager gave me a bit of advice once. He owns strong room studios, air studios. Well, he said, whatever you do, never get into owning a recording studio.
Well, I wish someone had given me that advice about 10 years ago. It's one of those funny things, though, isn't it? Because you love it so much, so you don't mind putting, like, all your money into it. But, like, it's just, I don't know, it's a strange thing. Like, a lot of money goes into it, and sometimes you feel like there's a very little return from it, but you wouldn't have it any other way, I suppose.
Yeah. We've got to have the latest toys.
Yeah, it's not even the latest. That's not the problem. It's the oldest toys seems to be my issue.
Yeah, the older ones are the expensive ones.
Yeah. I think I actually have like a price cap on my search thing on Reverb just because that's where the good stuff's kind of fitting in. So it's a nightmare, really. But yeah, the list of equipment wanted is endless, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of have the mentality of you can still make a good record on the crappiest equipment, though.
It's not as fun, though.
I always used to pride myself in being able to go into the worst studio and still come out with a great mix. For example, one of the best tracks I've ever done, Superstar in Groove Armada.
Right.
I mixed it in a crappy little studio in London, Battery Studio 2 it was upstairs in the old Battery Studios. Older, I think it was an AMEC desk, no automation, Atari computer, crappy monitors, pretty much Droma compressor outboards, nothing flash at all. Yeah. But one of the best records I've ever mixed in my life.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah. I kind of, the equipment part for me that's what I find fun about the studio. Do you know what I mean? Like having the good equipment is the part that intrigues me most of all, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from even playing the guitar as well. Like you as much as everyone knows, it's all about how you play and the feeling your fingers and stuff like that. There's something about buying a very expensive guitar and an expensive amp and then plugging it in and hearing it. So
even not being able to play guitar, there's something about picking up
strumming an
a 1957 Strat and playing it at 25 grand worth of guitar. Yeah. Just even though you can't play it, it feels good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the exact same thing with studio equipment.
And for me, it was the Starship Enterprise thing, sitting in front of a massive Neve desk, big U-shaped thing, 96 channels or whatever, all the lights flashing, all the faders moving.
Yeah.
That was what did it for me.
And I feel like, I mean, this might be in my head or not, you probably know better than I do, but I feel like with the outboard gear and the old consoles and stuff, the engineers played the music more than just, it's not computerized, you know what I mean? Like when you watch them like fader riding stuff and things like that, it's like they're playing the song as a musician rather than just
you were a musician. You
letting the computer do it all for you.
The studio's your instruments.
Yeah, exactly.
It still is. Pro Tools for me is the same.
But you still use a desk, don't you?
I still use faders, yeah. I still mix on a C24 and I try and mix as much as I can like I'm on a Neve.
So would you feel the same if you were just sat with a computer on a desk?
No, I didn't get it when just sitting there. I used to have my old setup. I used to have a PreSonus single fader.
With the fader port thing?
Just one though. And I'd do all my automation on that one fader.
Yeah.
And I hated doing it with the mouse. I just couldn't get the feel, couldn't get those vocal rides.
Yeah, yeah.
The vocal rides are weird because it's not. You can watch the waveform and you can see the waveform go small and you think I should push it up, but it's not always the case.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't look at the waveform. You've got to close your eyes, put yourself into the mix, and just feel it.
Right.
It's the only way. And then you look at what you've done after. You think that's not right, and you listen back. Okay, it is.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They don't say. Well, everyone says don't use your eyes, don't they?
Yeah.
Because you can't always trust what you're seeing.
I don't like using those EQs with the spectrum analyzers built into them.
I don't know. It's funny. I was watching a YouTube video about this today, and it was a guy saying like if you do, you ride you make a massive peak, don't you?
Yeah.
And then you glide it across to see where the thing. He was like, if I was to do this, and this is a guy that's recorded loads of people like on YouTube. He's not like some just anyone. He was like, if I was to do it this way, I would end up dipping all these signals out. And he actually went through it, and there was like 22 dips by the end of it. He was like, because when you're boosting it, that's what you're hearing. But in reality, I don't need to do any of this.
I sometimes do that.
Do you? So I've never got into the subtractive EQ thing. I kind of just boost what I like, and then like if there's something that's horrible, I take it out. But
I often have a couple of EQs, especially on a vocal, where I'm dipping 5 frequencies on cross on one EQ, but then I'm generally adding broader band EQ on a different one.
Right, yeah.
And just finding there's little artifacts in there that you can just zoom in on, give me the really tight cue and get them, pull them down a bit.
But do you think you'll hear that in a mix?
On a vocal, yeah, that's probably the vocal's the thing.
So would you do that on a guitar, for example?
Probably not so much, no.
Right.
Acoustic guitars sometimes.
Because the vocal's the main thing. That's
acoustic guitars are tricky sometimes, and you end up with a lot of EQ on them.
Yeah.
Just tricky to sit in a mix sometimes. But yeah, the vocal's the most important thing, isn't it? And that's where I'll end up with at least a couple of EQs normally.
Yeah.
My normal vocal chain will be a couple of EQs, a compressor, and a couple of DSs.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same with me. Lots of things doing minimal things rather than one thing doing a lot.
Yeah. Maybe a gate. Sometimes gate my vocals. Depends on what the spill's like. I edit out all the spill though.
Do you do a lot of? So why would you have spill if you're doing a vocal? Do you generally track in the same room? Or?
Singers take one ear off and things like that.
Do you know? Because I'm a singer as well, and it baffles me how loud some singers have to have their headphones to sing.
Yeah.
Because I've had times in the studio where a singer's come in and they keep asking me to add more and more, and in the end, because I'm confused so much by how much I'm having to add into these headphones, I've gone and put them on, and I swear to God, it's going to deafen me.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is that a thing? Do you think it's a nerves thing?
Yeah, in experience with singers, I think I usually dictate to the singer what the headphone balance should be.
Yeah.
And tell them, no, it's right. Just trust me, listen to it like that and do it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's just insecurities from the vocalists.
Do you think that's what it comes down to, just insecurity?
In studios.
Yeah.
Live vocalists, particularly ones who are used to gigging and gigging with monitors rather than in ears. Yeah. They don't get it when they put the headphones on.
Yeah.
And so you've got to train them. It's an art working in a studio. It's different.
Yeah, it is. Live. I mean, even for me, like, even though doing this for 10 years, I've recently started, because we're doing live streams with my band, and I've started using in-ears, and that's just a completely different ballgame altogether. Like, it's taken me a long time to kind of get comfortable with in-ears in my head.
Yeah. I think I've never tried it, but it would be weird, I think.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing. It sounds very clinical in your head. It doesn't sound...
A lot of big bands, with the Prodigy, I know we used to put ambient mics into the in-ears so they could hear the crowd.
Yeah, I've heard that. Having a room mic.
Yeah, because you just feel isolated on stage. You're not hearing nothing but the music. You're getting no feedback from the crowd. Yeah. And they rely on that feedback.
Yeah, because they do. It does block out everything. Yeah. So you are completely reliant on how good your headphone mix is.
So they'd have crowd mics at front of house. Feeding it into the in-ears.
Right, yeah.
And pointing away from the stage, getting as little of the PA as they could.
The actual PA, yeah.
And just getting crowd atmosphere.
Right, yeah.
Feeding that into the guys' in ears so they could. But
it's kind of like opened my eyes a little bit, because I feel like if I feel like this, even knowing what it's going to be like, I can't for a new singer coming in to not recorded much, it must be quite daunting to them putting the headphones on for the first time and hearing their voice really clear in their head.
It's like first time you hear your voice, I'm going to cringe when I hear this back. You hate the sound of your own voice when you're trying to record it.
I think I'm just used to it.
I don't sound anything like I think I sound.
Yeah. No, when I started vlogging with years ago because me and my partner, we have a wedding business as well. Yeah. And we travel around the world doing weddings, like photography and film. And we had the idea to start vlogging because we were traveling to Jamaica and Las Vegas and stuff. And vlogging was a massive thing on YouTube at that time. I hated watching myself back. I literally could not stand the sound of my voice, my facial expressions, everything. It was proper funny. Yeah, but now, because I've done it so much, I just think you get used to it, don't you?
I cringe every time I do a Zoom class and I watch a bit back.
Oh, do you?
It's like, God, is that what I sound like? My God.
Yeah. But then you start to think, is that what everyone else hears me like as well? That's
yeah.
Because to me, I would listen back to it and your voice would sound normal to me. Do you know what I mean? But
right.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I don't like the sound of my own voice.
I don't think anyone does.
That's why I sit the other side of the glass most of the time.
Do you have that moment with singers when you're editing their voice and you send them out the room?
Yeah, I don't like them sitting there when I'm doing it.
Yeah.
No.
No, I'm the same as well.
They jump in there before you finish.
Well, they hate it, don't they? The minute you're playing their voice back with no reverb, no EQ, and no compression, they're just like, "Oh my god,
Exactly.
get me out of this room right
No
now." So
auto-tune.
it's just better not hearing it. Yeah. Do you auto-tune everything?
I have to sneak the auto-tune on quite
I
often
do as well.
without them seeing it.
The amount of times I've told singers there's no auto-tune on their voice.
I put it on when they're out the room and then hide the window so they don't see that it's on there.
Yep, I do the exact same thing. Do you have the fake button thing as well? For someone's headphone mix, right? Can you just do that? Oh, there's a button there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah, it's fine now.
Yeah, no, even in the mix. I've done that to major record companies. So A&R guys come in and say, can you just do this? And I say, is that better? Yeah, no, I haven't changed a thing.
So that is consistent the whole way up the ladder, basically.
Yeah.
Right, okay, that's good to know.
Always.
But yeah, so episode 1 of For the Record podcast. We've got some good ideas for this podcast, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so.
So we were talking about maybe getting someone to send, or I mean, how would you do it? Would we have multiple people send in a mix, and we pick one we like?
I guess so. Or we could probably do 2 or 3 during a podcast, couldn't we? I guess. Could review 2 or 3. You could even review it live. I
was trying to think of a way to do this.
We could podcast from the control room maybe and have it.
Yeah.
Have the mix going up the speakers.
Yeah. Yeah, we could try that.
And then we could critique it live.
Yeah. I mean, that could potentially be better, actually, couldn't it? Because then it feels more in the moment rather than pre-thought out, I suppose.
We could even go live at some point and be doing it actually live.
Yeah, well, this is the thing at the minute. Everyone's live at the minute. Which actually brings us to something we're doing at the studio as well, doesn't it? Because for ever since COVID really hit, we've been, obviously gigging has just been non-existent for bands. So we've been trying to think of ways that we could make the studio into more of a live streaming venue as well. So my band has been trialing it for the last few months. So if you're on YouTube, we've got, they're called Band in the Beer sessions. And the idea is just to have a laugh with my band. We're going to get some singers in and play with us eventually as well. But it was just a practice run to get the whole studio ready for other bands to come in really and use it as a live streaming platform as well. Because I think that is going to be a thing for a while now, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully not. But
I quite like it. I think it's quite fun.
I think it'll carry on even after gigs come back.
Well, I think what COVID has done is a lot of bands have now understand the power of like Facebook, YouTube, and like, because I know some people that have gone massive through this.
And it's something you can do between gigs as well, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I always feel for the Manchester bands. There's a thing in Manchester was like you're not allowed to play for 3 months.
Well, after you do a gig,
you do a gig in Manchester, and then they ban you from doing a gig for a month either side of it.
Yeah, I got caught in that quite a lot with my band as well.
But then live streaming is a way through that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And getting to your audience and testing out new material, stuff
I think
like that.
a lot of companies now have kind of developed their equipment to work better with live streaming, haven't they?
Yeah.
So it's been quite fun, like doing it all.
It's got to be done well, live streaming as well. You can't just stick a phone up and do it down the phone mic.
No, definitely
especially
not.
with the band, it doesn't work.
I think that was the thing for me with COVID when it all started and everyone was doing their Facebook videos with their phones. I just got so bored so fast of it.
Yeah,
it sounds always terrible no matter who you are.
Yeah,
and it's just not entertaining.
The quality's got to be there. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the most important thing for me.
It was been quite when we started this. Because obviously I've got a background I've had the studio for 10 years and I've got a background in video editing as well and video. So I had all the cameras and I had all the recording equipment. So I thought it would be an easy kind of bridge into live. Bloody wasn't. Yeah. There was so many steps that we've had to take that just made no sense to me to get this to work.
The best thing is that black magic box that you got, I think. That's going to change. That's going to help a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, even that winds me up because it's only 4 cameras. So my initial thought was to have 8 cameras, but then to try and put that in, you're talking like $3,000 for a system.
Proper vision mixer.
Yeah, exactly.
A truck out the back to mix it.
I was quite surprised that there's not companies making more than 4. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even the 4-channel one's not exactly cheap.
An 8-camera shoot, that's probably about what we did for DVDs back in the day.
Was it?
Probably all we used for a whole gig in an arena.
But in my head, because I'm trying to think of it from like a video perspective, is you always need the kind of angles that are safe angles. Do you know what I mean? Like the snare or the kick or...
Yeah.
So to have 8, you've got 2 or 3 like safe angles. And having 4, you generally only got 1 safe angle. And that was my issue with it really, but... I think eventually I'm going to upgrade it to an 8 one.
Just got to have, you got to have a roaming camera as well.
Well, we had 2, so we had
operators.
So the way we did it was we had like a static camera on the drums and bass,
and
then the static camera on me and the keyboard player, and then 2 roaming cameras. So there was 2 people in here. One, because we basically split the room into 2 halves with cameras, and then one like was doing the roaming cameras for the drums and bass,
Right.
and the other one was doing this side of the room. So, but yeah, it's been an interesting thing to try and do.
Yeah.
Like HDMI cables are the bane of my life. Do you know how many HDMI cables we went through at the beginning trying to get them to work?
They don't always work, do they?
Well, it's because most of the cameras are like micro HDMI or mini HDMI.
Yeah.
And the connectors on the cameras are just terrible. So if you move a tiny bit, it loses the connection.
Yeah.
And, we were having nightmares with it.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way than the HDMI, really.
Well, there is. It's cinema cameras, but then you're talking like 10 grand a camera.
Yeah.
So, and then if you're doing 80 cameras, you're talking like 80 grand in cameras. Do you know what I mean? So they're getting better now. I've noticed the new Sony camera has a full-size HDMI out on it.
Right.
Which is a massive improvement.
Yeah. They should wirelessly do it somehow.
Well, I think you get latency issues and stuff like that,
yeah.
don't you?
Yeah, it's about time they got it fast enough.
Yeah. So yeah, that is one thing we're doing in the studio, though. I am whinging about it, but I mean, 6 months ago, I was hating my life trying to figure all this out, but now it's pretty much there. So we are pretty much. We've got another one coming up next week with my band as like the final test, and I think after that we're ready to start putting it out to other bands as well. And you said you've got a few people.
Yeah, there's a few people interested.
Yeah, so that'd be quite good.
Yeah. I think loads of bands are going to be well interested in it.
Well, I think so. I think it's just one of those things now. It's going to be normal after this to do live streams.
Yeah.
And I've noticed as well, there's a lot of studios now doing it, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of studios doing it. A lot of bands trying to do it on their own and not really succeeding, doing it from rehearsal rooms and things like that. So
it's hard. Like
a few people doing it really well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been expensive for me to try and do it, and I already had the studio and all the cameras.
Yeah.
So God knows how bands are trying to do it without all that.
It's not something you can just cobble together, is it, really?
No.
You do need a certain amount of gear.
I thought I could cobble it together with the stuff I already had, but even I couldn't. I had to buy loads of other stuff to get it to work.
Well, you pre-record it. This is the way most people are doing it. All these multi-screen, split-screen videos, like they're pretending they're all live on Zoom. They're all pre-recorded.
I don't know. I know. I get why you would pre-record it, because you can edit it and you can edit the sound, you can edit everything afterwards. But it's not live.
Not
I think the
live,
whole point for me was to have a gig experience. Do you know what I mean? Or as close as you can get.
Yeah.
And that has to be live for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And the band have got to be in one room for that to happen.
Exactly, yeah. They have to be
you can't
feeding
do
off
that,
each other.
All these things where the bands are all in different locations, all in their own houses. Doesn't work, does it?
No. 1 second, Dave. I just need to check that camera's still recording. Because it has a 25-minute thing on it. But yes, that's one thing we're doing. We're doing this podcast, obviously, which I think is going to be quite a lot of fun. I think this is, for me, it's going to be an hour of asking Dave questions. Because I've kind of wanted to have someone like you in the studio for a long time, because I think I've taught myself how to do it all. Yeah. And you end up doing a lot of YouTubing, a lot of Googling and stuff like that. But having someone who's got the amount of knowledge that you have is amazing.
There's so much rubbish out there on YouTube as well.
Well, there is, isn't there? And it takes some people a long time to figure out that thing they've learned is rubbish.
Yeah. I'm constantly vetting my students, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing there?" "Oh, I learned to watch a YouTube video." Well, they were wrong.
Yeah. But as a young person learning, you wouldn't know it's wrong, would you? That's the issue.
No, they're learning all these techniques that are just wrong ways of doing things.
I mean, I think we had this conversation the other day, didn't we? I was telling you about some stuff I learned that I did for years, and then I was like, well, that just doesn't work. Yeah. And then other people come in, they're like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, parallel compression is my biggest bane on there.
Yeah, you were telling me about this the other day. Why do you not like it?
Well, it's just it's okay sometimes, but people think you have to have it on everything, on every mix. Yeah. And that all it's doing is making it louder. Just turn it up a bit.
Do you think, does that...
90% of the time, it's just making it louder.
Because I was talking to you about the rear bus technique, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Which is something they used to use in the consoles.
And so the other thing, but you get phase issues with it. You get cancellation going on. Yeah. And that's what I don't like about it.
Right, fair enough.
At certain times it works. It's good on a kick drum, things like that. Mm-hmm. But on the whole mix, not that into it really.
So you don't think it brings energy into your mix?
No, I think it just makes it louder.
Right, which why people think it's bringing in energy.
Yeah. And if you match the volume and A/B it pretty much hasn't changed.
Right.
I think using compression properly gives you more energy in a mix. across the channels and on the mix bus itself. Having a good compressor on the mix bus gives you that energy, and you don't need to overuse it. You don't need to really extremely pump it. If you want extreme compression, then you do that on subgroups within your mix.
Yeah.
Across the whole mix, you're usually quite subtle with your compressor. And the good quality, if you've got like a Fairchild, a real one over your mix, it's going to give you that energy.
Yeah.
You don't need to parallel compress it to get that. It's better off not.
Right, yeah.
When you're not parallel, if you're parallel compressing, you've got some uncompressed signal coming through, so you're still getting some of those peaks coming through.
Yeah.
And so you're still losing overall volume. The point of compression is to even out your volume so the overall level's louder. Yeah. So, yeah, you lose a bit of that when you do the parallel compression thing. And the phase issue is the one that bugs me the most, is you do get some cancellation, especially on your bottom end.
Right, yeah. I think you'd hate one of my mixes if you saw it. I think I'm generally parallel compressing most things a couple of times.
It gets me though. A lot of the guys, a lot of my students, they'll be in Logic and they'll be trying to parallel compress, and there's a mix button on the compressor. It's like that's all you need is the wet dry button on the compressor.
I feel like this is a newer thing though, because now there is a mix on every compressor.
Yeah,
do you know what
never
I mean?
used to.
I never used to see them.
No, and analog compressors never have a wet dry knob.
A lot of them do now, though, don't they? They've started bringing back a lot of them with actual wet dries on them.
On all the old compressors, you never saw that.
No,
they were always, and then it's instant parallel compression, but is it? It's just adding some dry signal to your compressor. It's just giving less compression, isn't it?
So would you add more compression if you're going to use that, and then mix it with the drier
for
one?
me, the idea of parallel compression is you use it as an effect. You really over compress one signal and then lightly compress the other signal and then blend them.
Right. Yeah.
And I find that works best on kick drums. Sometimes on a bass it might work on individual instruments. Maybe on some subgrouping things. Sometimes it works on the drum subgroups.
Yeah, I think I mainly use it on drums. So I would do like a kick and snare parallel compression bus.
Yeah.
And then, but that's proper hitting the compressor.
Do it on the kick and snare, but not on the
so I wouldn't
overheads
do it on the
and
overheads and
rest
stuff
of
like
it.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I compress my overheads and rooms pretty heavily anyway.
Yeah.
And I sidechain my overheads and rooms off the snare quite a lot.
I'll do it so it dips out
so
when
it dips the snare down.
Right. Yeah.
That's exactly what I've just been doing on that mix.
Wait, so it pulls the snare down?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. I thought you meant the other way around.
So I get less snare in my overheads in my room.
Right.
And more snare from the actual snare mic.
Okay.
Which I can control better.
Yeah.
And because you get that thing where you push up the overheads and the snare sound completely changes.
Yeah, that's most of my mixes.
And really, my overheads
and then
are
you
there.
spend ages trying to figure out how you get the good snare sound that you got back into your drums with
Depends
your
how you do your
overheads
drum kit as well. If you only get one set of overheads, it's slightly different. When I do drums, I have my overheads, but I also have a mic behind the drummer's head.
Yeah.
And I don't sidechain that one, and that's pointing at the snare drum.
Right. Okay.
My actual overhead mics, they're for my cymbals.
Yeah.
And for my top end. So I don't want so much snare in it. So I don't heavily sidechain it, but I do it so the snare is slightly reduced.
Yeah.
And, same on the room. Sometimes with the room mics, it varies. I sidechain from this. I make a gated reverb off the room mic sometimes, where I'll send the snare into the sidechain and put it on a gate and use a release to make a gated reverb effect.
Yeah.
I use my big room for that sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
I often record a few rooms.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time I didn't use any rooms, but obviously because the room was so small. But now we've got the bigger room, I have been kind of playing about with rooms a bit more.
I'd be tempted in here to stick one out in the corridor and things like that.
I used to, because we've got, you won't be able to see this on the video. We have a pipe going up where the aircon unit was.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I used to put a mic up there, get in it and take the thing off, because that was quite a weird sound as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have been trying to play about with stuff like that.
I like having those weird sounds in a drum kit. I was telling you earlier about Rack Studios. I recorded drums down there a little while ago, and they've got this trick that Radiohead used to do. And they get an SM57, put it in a plastic bag and gaffer tape it up, and then they put it underwater in a bowl of water on the floor next to the drum kit. And it sounded awful, but
and then you
good for an effect at times. So like that, maybe for the intro, if it was in middle 8 or something like that, you might use a bit of it. I quite like the other one they did there was putting PZMs on the floor either side of the kick drum. That was pretty good.
Right.
So
it's getting like resonance of the floor
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
my first ever studio session when I was a young boy in a band. Went to an 8-track studio to do our first demo, and the whole drum kit was one PZM mic on the mirror on the wall.
Really?
He didn't know any other drum mics. He did the whole kit with one PZM mic. He was raving about it. Look back on it, it's the worst drum sound I've ever heard.
How did you get into music?
It used to be in bands. My brother gave me a bass guitar for Christmas, and then I joined his band playing Beatles cover versions.
Right.
I think he gave me the bass because they needed a bass player.
Yeah.
And he wanted to play guitar. So I started playing Beatles cover versions, doing working men's clubs when I was about 14, 15. Then we got a band at school with my mates, gradually started writing our own songs, kind of got to a level where we did some support tours and a few support gigs, and then the guitarist, who was the only real talented one in the band, got his girlfriend pregnant and decided he was getting married. And so I thought, well, that's the end of the band. I'm moving to London, going to work in a studio.
Right, okay.
So that's pretty much what I did.
Was that difficult, getting a job in a studio when you first moved?
I had to go to college for 2 years first, which I wasn't anticipating. But I found a college course then. It was back in the late 80s, and there wasn't very many courses around. In fact, it was the only one in the country at Salford. Did a diploma in professional audio systems and acoustics. And it was a rubbish course, really, but they had a 16-track studio and an 8-track studio in the college on tape. And they had a little MIDI suite with a DX7 and an Atari and an S950 sampler, which is where I ended up most of the time.
Right.
They didn't have any software on the Atari, so I got a cracker Cubase, managed to wire it all up and got it working, and started figuring out how to do my own sampling and my own electronic sort of stuff.
Yeah, cool.
And the college course actually got me a job in a real studio by the end.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I left college and I went to work at a studio called Jacobs down in Surrey. It was a big old residential studio, SSL desk, Neve desk. I walked in there on my first day. The Cure were having an end of album party.
Oh, really?
So there's girls in the swimming pool. Everything was going on there, proper rock and roll. I was like, oh, this is it.
So you started in a good place then.
I've arrived in the music business.
This is for me, this. So did you have to do the whole running jobs at first?
Yeah, my first job there, after cleaning up after the party, it was like Monday morning. It's like, what do you want me to do then? And there was no one in the studios that day. His first job was he cleaned the windows.
Really?
Then I had to cut the grass, sit down lawnmower, managed to roll it.
Right.
So they said, you're better off in the studio, come on. So finally I got in the studio and didn't break anything else. And,
so how long were you doing stuff like that before they trusted you to kind of start managing your own sessions?
I did second assistant. My first album was a band called The Big Dish from Glasgow. They didn't do much, but they had a producer called Warren Livesey who's famous for producing what's he called? Wherever I Lay My Hat, Paul Young.
Yeah.
And he did Midnight Oil and things, bands like that. He was a big producer, and he had this band, The Big Dish, came in, and my first proper session with him, I was like the T-boy basically. It's Pino Palladino and Manu Capture who turned up to play drums and bass.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like the best session players ever in the world.
Yeah.
And I was putting up the mics for Manu Capture's drum kit. I was like, wow, this guy from Air Studios was showing me how to mic up a kit.
Right. Yeah.
I learned how to mic up a kit that day, and I still do it the same way.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, I suppose if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Nah, and when you got someone of that calibre teaching you how to do it as well, and over the years I've picked up different techniques off different people.
Yeah.
So I did that album about a month or so on that album as second assistant. Then I got on the first assistant job.
Yeah.
And then after about 3 or 4 months at that place, living in the middle of nowhere in the countryside and everything, I got a job at a place called Strong Room and moved up to London.
Right.
Where I was a bit more in the thick of it.
So you stayed there for a long time then?
Yeah. Strong Room was funny. I never planned to. Strong Room was an AMEC studio at the time, two AMEC desks, and like 500 quid a day, mid-range sort of studio.
Right.
After about a year there, they had a flood and they bought a Neve with insurance money. So suddenly it went up a level.
Yeah.
Next year they bought an SSL for the other room. And it went up another level.
Yeah.
Then they built a third room, put a euphonics desk in there and made it a 5.1 mixed room. So I became like one of the first 5.1 mix engineers.
Right, yeah.
And then Strong Room kept growing and growing and growing. So I stayed there.
Right.
And by the time I left, Richard, who owned the place, was my manager. He was looking after me, and I was freelancing at all different studios as well, not just working at Strong Room. I was working at pretty much every studio in London and
Yeah.
Europe, all over the place. I was off in Rome, Paris, Berlin, and different studios. And just being at Strong Room used to generate that work. Or you'd meet a band in Strong Room, and
I
they'd
suppose
say,
it's great for connections, something like that, isn't it? Yeah.
They'd say, "Oh yeah, we're off to Berlin next week. Do you want to come with us?
Yeah.
We like working with you." And so you'd make up relationships with bands and people like that, and then they'd take you off to work in different places.
Yeah.
So it's great, and there's no need to leave Strong Room for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
I finally
I
left.
suppose if you've got the best bands coming into that place, it's a good place to be, isn't it?
And the place kept growing and growing and growing, and by these days, Strong Room, there's 3-4 main rooms and about 15 smaller pre-production rooms that different producers rent out.
Right, yeah.
And make it their base. So it's a proper hub of activity.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be, and there's a bar there where they put gigs on and things like that as well.
Right, yeah, cool. That's kind of what we're thinking about this place, really, isn't it? Is making a bit more of a hub for musicians to come. Because obviously we can do videos, like podcasts, music. Lou, my partner, is a photographer as well, so she does a lot of photo stuff. So
yeah, right. So you get the whole package.
And that's kind of what we're thinking, is like somewhere... if once we get to know some management companies and stuff, it's somewhere they can bring, like if they have an artist, they can come and get everything done in one place. So they're only dealing with one person rather than dealing with like 10 people trying to get everything done. Yeah.
That's exactly the perfect idea, really.
Yeah.
You'll start giving Mavs production deals and things like that, maybe.
I think this is the thing these days, isn't it? Like with bands, you can't just be a good band with good songs anymore. You have to have like photography knowledge, video knowledge, like music knowledge. You have to have your songs at a certain level before they even listen to them.
Social media presence.
Social media, it's just the list of like qualifications needed for a band to kind of have a chance these days is just massive, isn't it?
First thing a record company asks you is what your social media numbers. They don't want to hear your music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in a way, it's more relevant, isn't it? Because they need to know how much work it's going to be to kind of push you forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is our first episode of For the Record. There's going to be many more questions from me to Dave, probably.
Into the gritty bits and pieces of all the different acts. I'll dish the dirt on a few artists.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Oh, the ones that didn't pay me.
If you're listening and you've got any questions you want Dave to answer or me to answer, just follow us at Unit 26 Studios on Instagram and just send us your questions there and we can get to them.
Send us your questions. Prodigy, Armada. I'll dish the dirt on all of them.
You're going to have no friends by the end of this podcast this time next year.
There's
You're
no doubt.
thinking,
There's
where
no
are my
doubt.
connections?
There's no doubt. Keith Fleet was the nicest bloke I've ever met.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for watching. And if you liked the episode, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll be back next week with some more dirt on people and probably a lot more questions.
Cheers, guys. See you next week.
Thanks.